Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Ladd and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 245. And if you are listening on the day of release, like I know many of you do, it's the 9th of May. So the 9th of May, we're about a week away from the World's Strongest Man competition, which is going to be held out in Sacramento, California this year, which is very it ties in with this podcast because the guests we've got on today, I'll introduce you to in a minute, but we will touch upon maybe some of the upcoming stuff that's going to be happening in the next week or so over in America. But before then, I'll just quickly touch base with Pete, make sure he's okay. He's down in Bath in Somerset. You okay, Pete?
I am. Yes, I've been watching. I just watched it today, actually. Paddy Haynes's video on like the events that are coming up. And he didn't want to screw it up. He didn't want to give too much away because he's obviously never done it before. And he's like, it's my first time. I don't want to be like banned from coming across for giving everything away. But he's he likes his chances and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's dead exciting. I can't wait because Shane Flowers is in it and Flynn's in it and all that. It's good representation, isn't it? So yeah,
it is. And we are joined today by Terry Hollands, are you in Dartford in Kent at the moment, Terry?
I'm actually in Gravesend, but it's very close. So yeah, I'm just a little bit further into Kent than Dartford is.
Yeah, so you're probably only about an hour away from me in Chelmsford anyway. I think you're pretty close to Essex, aren't you? Next door.
Yeah. I can actually see the Tilbury docks out my balcony window. So that's how close I am.
Excellent.
What a beautiful view.
Yeah.
So Terry Hollands, aka Big Tell. I mean, anyone who has watched World's Strongest Man or Giants Live or anything over the last couple of decades. I was thinking about this earlier, Terry or Tell. I was thinking that probably behind sort of Jeff Capes, and maybe Eddie Hall's very kind of prominent at the moment, but you're probably, in terms of English British strongmen, probably one of the most recognizable people over the last couple of decades. Would you say that's kind of fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, I think obviously I never won World's Strongest Man. I come third a couple of times. Got my trophies just sitting just there. I come third a couple of times, but obviously I think the big thing where a lot of people sort of remember me is, one, we perhaps didn't have the best representation in terms of British athletes when I came into it. But also on top of that, obviously, was the amount of years I did it. So I think in my first 10 years, it was first year I didn't make the final, and then for the 9 years following, I did. So obviously, I spent a lot of time on people's TVs at Christmas. So I think probably obviously Eddie has surpassed it, and obviously Jeff Capes was the man in terms of taking the sport forwards. And I think even now, like Tom Stoltman sort of getting into that sort of position where he's becoming very well known, especially outside of strongman as well. But yeah, I suppose I'm sort of in that category a little bit.
Yeah, because I think in total, I think you went to the World's Strongest Man, I think qualified for it like 15 times. Is that correct? And reached the final 9 times, I think 2 podiums. Just so people know here, I mean, a lot of people will know, but, you're former England's, Britain's, UK's Strongest Man. I think you made the podium at Europe's Strongest Man twice. Really prolific. And like you say, I know it's quite apt that where we're recording this today, there's a lot of talk at the moment about the upcoming World's Strongest Man. And there's been a bit of fallout last couple of days with things. But I actually think that it is an English institution, a British institution, to have it on TV at Christmas. And I understand why people don't like that. But for the purists, for the fans, I can understand they might want to live stream it when it's on. But I think for people who aren't necessarily big fans of it, but just when you get families sat around watching it at Christmas, I mean, I remember watching it from the 80s, on TV. It's just been a staple of English British TV at Christmas, hasn't it? And like you say, people will, and you're still very much involved in it from a kind of punditry, commentary on the TV, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually one of my earliest childhood memories. You know, it's struggle for me to even remember what happened a couple of weeks ago. But I can actually remember sitting down with the family at Christmas, watching Jeff Capes win World's Strongest Man. Even as a young kid, I absolutely loved it. My family loved it. So it was, yeah, I kind of do sit in that camp a little bit with the, you know, the tradition being a good thing. But I also realise that times have got to move forwards. A lot of the other big shows are live streaming now. All the qualifiers for World's Strongest Man are live streamed. So I can understand why the fans get frustrated, especially the real sort of strongman diehard fans. They want to see all the action. So I do understand where their frustration comes from. It's just obviously, luckily, I'm in a position where I'm sort of privy to a lot of conversations that go on behind the scenes and knowing about TV contracts and stuff like that. And it's a real tricky situation because when they signed the most recent TV deal that they still have in place in America, they excuse me, they essentially signed it to guarantee getting World's Strongest Man to see that 50 years out. So I think they had about sort of 9-10 years still to make it to 50 years. And it was, believe it or not, it's actually sometimes a little bit you know, it's a bit sketchy. Like sometimes it's not a guarantee that World's Strongest Man will be on TV, especially in America. So they did this deal to guarantee that World's Strongest Man was on TV for 50 years. So at least it'll make it to that point. But the problem is in that last sort of, I don't know, 8 years or whatever that the contract's been running for, a lot's changed and the sport's moved forward and, you know, pay-per-views are now more acceptable. People expect live streams. So obviously in hindsight, now you sort of think it was a rough deal, but at the time it seemed like a great deal to keep World's Strongest Man on TV.
I mean,
Well,
I suppose, yeah, when
we were just
sorry, go on,
saying,
Pete.
me and James were just saying before you came on actually, about how it used to be like you didn't have to get a ticket, you could just turn up and watch, and you said people were buying step ladders from hardware
Yeah.
stores, all of that sort of stuff. But it's become a much bigger sport, but the venues don't necessarily have like the capacity to hold the people, say, for like the amount of people who might want to come over. So it's just like you say, like contracts are great and all that sort of stuff for things to bring money in and all of that, but it's a bit unfortunate that we can't really, or it's hard to have them subject to change because times move on very quickly with social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's like there's actually been one of the issues that's been come up the last few days is the ticketing situation because they were going to limit the number of friends and family that the athletes could bring with them in terms of like free ticketing. And there's only 1,100 seats, I believe. And this is the problem. The sport's almost outgrown the way that World's Strongest Man runs it. A lot of the way they run it is smaller. Well, it's not even arena. They're putting bleacher seating into an area which is not even an arena. So there's 1,100 seats, and obviously some of the athletes were asking for a lot of tickets, and they were like, if we give everyone that amount of tickets, we're literally going to have half the tickets given away to friends and family. So that obviously then it makes a lot less tickets available for the fans, and obviously it's already limited as it is. I mean, I personally feel that the way World's Strongest Man needs to go is almost more the Giants Live model where it's in an arena. There's, you know, seating in place. There's a backstage area where they can keep all the equipment. I think like a larger version of Giants Live and a bit more of a sort of bigger production, perhaps over a number of days, is the way that sort of World's Strongest Man needs to go, really.
Yeah, because I think I mean, both Pete and I kind of attend the Giants Live ones. We're both at Royal Albert Hall, aren't we, Pete? I think in
yeah, I'm in the cheap seats and you've got the ones, yeah.
But you know, yeah, the Giants Live. I mean, the way that's right. I mean, they can put 8,000-10,000 people in an arena now, can't they, and sell it out. So that's I did used to like the when they certainly in the old days, like you said, we're all similar ages. We're all kind of like mid to late 40s, you know, and I think when you watched it on TV, when it used to be in different countries, and then you'd maybe have some events on the beach and you'd have events at different places, it was quite nice to have it outdoors. But like you say, it's probably times have moved on and things have changed now, and it's difficult because I remember watching it like when it was maybe in Mauritius one year, and then it was South Africa, and it was, you know, you've probably competed in loads of countries while you were doing it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, I've got to experience China a few times, Malaysia, Botswana. You know, I have done quite a few in America, to be fair. It did become a little bit more common, but obviously recent years it's been America, America, and sort of Sacramento 2 years, then to Myrtle Beach, then back to Sacramento. And I believe there is an option to go back to Myrtle Beach next year. I think the problem is, I mean, I don't know that for a fact, so I might be wrong, but I think that is the case. The reason they like to do these sort of deals is, one, they obviously sign the contracts with the tourist boards in the area, so it's sort of to try and generate tourism with them, but also it's a lot less transporting equipment, you know, because we're talking about a lot of equipment needs to get moved around. And if they're shipping it all over the world, it's also got to go in storage. If they do 2 years in one place, it makes it so much easier to just rent a storage unit there, keep it in storage, do it again the following year, and then ship it on the year after. But I mean, I do ultimately think that some of the sort of things that have come up the last few days are very relevant in terms of how things could change. And it's actually brought to light quite a lot of the issues with World's Strongest Man, in terms of I think there's about like 5 different departments all working on World's Strongest Man, different sections of the same company. And that creates a lot of problems, because there's no one person sitting there going, right, this is what we're doing, this is the decision, that's what's happening. They have to have a meeting and discuss it, and then no one actually ends up making the decision, because there's so many of them. They've got different views. You know, the TV people want it to be right for TV. The event organisers want it to be right for the event and for the health and safety and things like this. And then obviously the Giants Live guys do the tournament directors. They want it to be right for the competitors. And then it becomes this sort of, not a battle, but they all sort of see it in a different way. And it does cause a lot of problems.
I think a lot of our listeners will empathise, because they'll work in offices.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much every office.
But like you say, something like Giants Live, you've got like Colin and Darren or whatever. You know, if something needs to be made, they may have a quick chat, decide what's going on. Right, that's it. You know, whereas if you've got like, you know, you've got to decide everything by committee and meetings and stuff. It's a longer process to get to an answer, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I think Giants Live's been so successful. Is when we're at the events, if there's a decision that needs to be made, normally Darren, if I'm honest, but one of them will make that decision and say, this is what needs to happen. But there's no like, meeting to discuss all the different options. It's like, right, this is what's happening. We're going to run with it. If we get it slightly wrong, you know, it is what it is, but this is what's happening. And generally they make the right decisions because they're experienced in what they're doing.
Yeah, no, that's great. So Terry, I suppose, would you want to give us, just for people, I know we've just gone, we said, we just talked about 15 minutes about World's Strongest Man, which is great. But probably for a bit about yourself, for those who don't know really, would you mind just kind of sharing kind of your early life, maybe introduction into sport, you know, introduction into strength, and then kind of how you kind of basically went down the route that you went down? Because obviously now, like you say, Strongest Man seems to be riding on the crest of a wave in terms of global popularity, and with, like we've said, YouTube and social media and all the rest of it. But when you started, I'd imagine it was a very different landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and keep this as brief as possible because I can waffle on a little bit. So I was always an avid sports person as a kid. I was very like into sport activity. I started racing BMXs when I was 5 years old. I then got into judo at 7. I did that for a number of years. Was really sort of focused on that. Even as a young kid, I was training like 6 days a week. By the time I was 10, I was training with the senior guys because I was bigger than most of the kids were, you know, and it became something that was very intense at a young age. But I've always had that sort of mentality of like, if I can't do something, I need to keep doing it. And, you know, was never scared of the hard work and the sort of, you know, pushing myself. Then there was a bit of overlap with the rugby. I started playing rugby when I was at secondary school, played a number of years, obviously, growing up all through school. I also played club rugby, county rugby, and it all sort of went from there. And there was a point where I was going to like the British Championships in judo and then having to play rugby. And it was kind of like one of them's got to give. And at the time, I think I'd done judo for such a long time and so intensely as a child that I decided that the rugby was the way I wanted to go. And I think even for that, you know, I was as a young lad, I think when I was 15, I was playing schoolboy rugby on a Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon playing for the local club in their men's second team. Sunday morning I'd play for like my age group, and then Sunday afternoon I'd play for the Colts team, like the under 19. So literally 4 games in a weekend. I've always been kind of like that. And I'd train multiple, I'd go to different clubs and train, training after school. So I've always sort of had that sort of hard work within sporting stuff. Not so much with my schoolwork, I must admit, but with when I was sort of doing sporting stuff, I was very hard working. And anyway, I mean, basically the end of the rugby was I was at Queen's for 3 seasons, didn't renew the contract at the end of the academy stuff. I could have sort of stuck around there and tried to sort of work my way through the men's side, but sort of I was in a position where it's like, this isn't where I want to be right now. I need to get better. I need to focus on what can I do to improve. So I went to New Zealand and played over there for a couple of years. Having done that, it was a great experience. One of the best things I ever did. I kind of came back and was almost a little bit like disillusioned with rugby. Like, not that I ever fell out of love with it, just I wasn't as dedicated anymore. And it kind of became this, what do I do? Do I go and play for like a team that's a couple of leagues below the Premiership, semi-pro, try and work my way back up again? Or do I go and play rugby with all my old school friends and get drunk on a weekend and party and enjoy myself? And I was like, either way, I'm going to have to work. So.
And how old would you have been at this stage? Maybe in your 20s?
Yeah, I was early 20s. So I was like 20. Yeah. I was 23 when I came back from New Zealand. So by that point, it's kind of like, you know, you've almost missed the boat of getting through the academy stuff, but you're still young, so you can work your way through. But I basically just decided I wanted to go and enjoy my rugby, and played, I think, about half a season of local rugby at like a really low level, and couldn't stand it because I couldn't understand why people didn't train and didn't work hard and everything else, because that had been my life for so long. I then sort of got into the gym like randomly. One of the guys who played for my local club was like a bodybuilder, and he was kind of just, oh, just come up the gym, because I was sort of scratching around, didn't really know what to do with myself. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go up. And then I started obviously getting a bit more interested in the gym, but still only like, you know, it wasn't like something that was really serious, and a lot more sort of cardio stuff that had followed on from the rugby. I never really lifted a lot of weights when I was playing rugby. The main focus for me was sort of, I was always big and strong enough. I just needed to keep my sort of weight down and keep my fitness levels up. So I sort of continued doing a bit of weights, but with a lot of cardio based stuff. And there was one of the guys there sort of had done a couple of strongman shows, and I thought, do you know what? I think I'm stronger than him. I might have a go. And I went down and entered a competition down in Kent. It was at All Hallows Holiday Park down in Kent. It was a novice competition. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'd never done any strongman events. I'd done a bit of lifting in the gym, and I ended up winning the competition. 2 weeks later, I did South Coast Strongest Man, but in the open, because I wasn't allowed to do another novice, and I came 4th in that. And I was up against a lot of like the best guys in the south of England, and I was kind of like, well, if I'm coming 4th and I've never even trained for this, and they've been training for it for years, I must be pretty good. And sort of then I started like training for it and everything else, and sort of it all went from there, really. I think it was like 7 months later, I'd won UK Strongest Man and was on my way to World Strongest Man. It literally just happened like that. So I obviously have worked very hard as a youngster, and I've always been very fit, very active, especially for a big guy. I was very athletic for a big guy as a rugby player as well. And I was very fortunate that everything came quite easy in the beginning. I sort of didn't really have to try that hard to get to those sort of initial World's Strongest Man levels of strength, especially back then, because the standard wasn't quite as high. I think the first time I ever deadlifted, I deadlifted 260 kilos. And 6 months later, I was deadlifting 380 kilos. So it wasn't like a like one of these things that I spent years chipping away at. I was just very lucky that I had great genetics for it, and obviously I've always been a sportsman, so I was very sort of used to hard work.
So I mean, I think are you around 6'6", aren't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually, when I was playing rugby at Queen's, I got measured at 1 metre 99 and a half. So I was half a centimetre off 2 meters, and I'm now like 1 metre 95. So
Yeah.
I'm like 6'5" ish.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what that is, but yeah, I think all the years of lifting and old age is making me shrink a bit.
Okay, because that's funny you say about the first time you deadlifted, because I know when we had Lucy Underdown on, who you obviously know
Yeah,
well, she said the first time she deadlifted in a gym, she deadlifted I think 170 or 180 kilos.
yeah,
You know, as a woman, you think bloody, and then she said it took her maybe 6 months to get to 200 kilos, and then
yeah.
you know, so having that, so when you were first going into this,
Sorry, I just interrupt. Like
yeah,
Lucy, the thing with Lucy, she's very much the same as me in the respect different sports, but she's always been an athlete. You know, she was a thrower before, so she's used to doing like a lot of physical activity. Her body's obviously really in tune. I actually remember Lucy deadlifting 220 for the first time because we used to train at the same gym, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Couple of years later, she's like making 280 look like a warm up, and it's madness. But really proud of what she's done.
yeah, she's fantastic. Yeah, she came to the gym actually in Chelmsford and did a workshop, and she was lovely. You know, she was great
Yeah.
with everyone and so friendly, so down to earth and everything. So when you first started, you know, you came out of rugby and you started doing the strongman comps. I mean, how kind of heavy were you then when you were doing those early comps?
The very first one I did, I was just under 140 kilos.
Mm,
Um, so obviously by then, I'd come back from New Zealand and spent a few months. I don't know how to put this. Enjoying myself and enjoying my social life and enjoying my visits to restaurants. So I had put on a bit of weight. Still wasn't in terrible shape, even at just under 140. But then I think by the time I went to World's Strongest Man for the first time, I was like 170 kilos.
mm,
I sort of very much took that old school mentality of like, if I'm going to be big, I've got to eat big. And
mm.
probably wasn't, obviously knowing what I know now, probably wasn't the smartest thing in the world. I was just like, right, all I need to worry about is getting enough protein and eating as much as I physically can, and all will be fine. And it sort of worked up to a point, and then obviously it went a little bit too far, and I'm kind of like, this is starting to hinder my performance now. So yeah, I was pretty big. Even when I was playing rugby at Queen's, I was like 100, between sort of 125 and 130 kilos. So
Mm.
I was still a big boy even back then.
Because you mentioned, and I saw a post that you did, and I think it was a picture of you. It was definitely a Giants live event, but it was when it might have even been black and white, but I think you
Yeah,
obviously finished an event, took your top off. You had six-pack abs.
yeah,
You said this was when I realized that I could be strong without being fat or
yeah,
overweight,
yeah,
whatever the phrase you used was.
yeah,
So like you say, you must, and we'll come to this in a bit. We'll talk about this kind of transformation that you've had, but that realization that, because obviously to an extent there's this old phrase, isn't there, you know, mass moves
yeah,
mass moves mass, and you know, the bigger you are, the stronger you're going to be. And for things like, you know, I've seen you do, you know, when you're doing things like pulling planes and pulling
yeah.
buses and all that, then obviously a certain amount of weight is going to be a positive thing. But you came to that realization that actually, you know, maybe I don't need to be quite as big as I am, and I can be, you know, like you say, it was
Yeah.
hindering your performance in certain things. Yeah.
Well, the crazy thing is, I actually, after I dieted down, that picture you're talking about was Britain's Strongest Man in 2018. And I actually remember I was 146 kilos at that competition. So that was me at 146. And I actually went to Dubai later that year, and I did a truck pull there, and there was Brian there, Thor, I can't remember who else was competing, but a lot of big hitters. I think Kielakowski was there. You know, there was a lot of good truck pullers and big hitters there. It was the old Worcester competitions where, you know, it was a big lineup. And I actually won the truck pull still. And I think at the time I was like 150 kilos. So I went from winning truck pulls at 180 kilos, but I'm still winning them when I'm 150. I personally found that when I was starting the truck pull, the extra weight helped on the start. But I can honestly say that every time I did a truck pull, the last 5 meters, I was basically just letting the truck roll. I was so exhausted. As I sort of managed to get that weight down, yes, I maybe lost a tiny bit of power off the start, but I did have the ability to push harder through the whole thing because my fitness levels, just from losing weight, I didn't really change my training much. Changed it a bit, but not that much. I didn't do masses of extra cardio, but my fitness levels improved so much just from that. I mean, this is the thing where, I mean, obviously, you know, you guys are sort of health, fitness, talking about this stuff. One of the biggest indicators of poor health later in life is being overweight, but also one of the biggest indicators. I know you can get some people that are bigger that are fit, but generally carrying extra weight is going to be a hindrance on your fitness levels, and you can improve your fitness and your health just by dropping excess body fat.
And I think I know when we've had Magnus on as well, and I've spent a bit of time with Magnus before, and he's now really consciously getting slimmer. Every time I see him, he's like he looks leaner and slimmer, and he's in his getting towards probably mid-60s, I think now. So like you say, just from a longevity point of view, big people who are excessively big don't, you know, tend to live to their 80s and the 90s. You know what I mean? It's kind of
it's like big dogs, isn't it? You think about big dogs, they don't generally go on for a long time, whereas the little small Jack Russells and things like that kick around forever. You know, it's just nature and just biology. We're not supposed to be 180, 190 kilos, whether it's fat, muscle, whatever it is, we're not supposed to be that. So if you can, you know, obviously this is where the sort of health and sport are sort of, it's a balancing act. You understand that strongman's not the healthiest sport in the world, but there is a healthy way of doing it, or the healthiest way of doing it. And I think that was the balance that I sort of got in the end, where I was like, right, okay, I know some of the things I'm doing in strongman are not healthy. Some of the events, some of the diet, some of the supplements, you know, some of these things are not healthy, but I can do it in the healthiest way possible.
It's funny because the like, just noticing it recently, more recently, people like Paddy and Kodiak, you know, that Mitchell Hooper even isn't that massive, is he?
No.
But, I mean, he's a big guy, obviously, but so when, I mean, and I don't know if the events have changed loads more to endurance type stuff, because I mean, like, Paddy on the shield carry is just amazing, isn't he? But you know, back when you started, I think everyone was doing the same thing, weren't they? Like, oh, just get as big as you can and lift as much as you can. And then the endurance events, everyone was on like a plain field.
Yeah, so, except for Marius, and that's why he used to win all the time. That was the difference.
Except for that, yeah. But so did I mean, I'm not saying were you the first to realize, but like, did other people notice what you were doing and then start to think like, hang on, this is, because it's evolved, hasn't it, into what you've just said? People are slightly less weighty, say.
I mean, I think a lot of it's partly guys understand science, nutrition, you know, the education of the sport has improved so much. And I'm probably going to get shot down for saying this. I think that CrossFit has had a big benefit on it because they're so into their mobility stuff, looking after their body, nutrition. And obviously CrossFit and Strongman, they're very similar in the sports. One's more strength-based, one's more conditioning-based, but they're all very similar. And I think that's had a big benefit. There's a lot of coaches that have sort of been involved in those sort of circles that have perhaps brought some of that knowledge with them. And I think that we're in a sort of position now where, because the sport's still quite young relatively, it started in 1977, really, World's Strongest Man. It's not an old sport, and I think that knowledge progresses all the time. So I think we're at a point now where this is why we're seeing such amazing athletes now, because the knowledge is there for these guys to get better and better. But also the events do go in waves. And at the moment, we're sort of in this phase of, yes, the weights are heavy. Yes, they're doing max deadlifts and log presses, but a lot of the sort of super yokes and things like this, they're not insanely heavy like they have been for periods. You know, I remember the Arnolds a few years back, they were doing a 600 kilo yoke. And I mean, a lot of those sort of events are tending to, you know, disappear almost. And I think that they realised that, you know, there was a point where they were pushing the guys so hard that probably in 10 years' time, a lot of the guys probably would have some health issues, whether it's, you know, internal health or, you know, 20 years down the line, they can't walk properly. I mean, it was getting very extreme, and they sort of reined it back in. I think personally think it's more entertaining as well to see more athletic guys doing amazing things. They're still massively strong on the static events. So it's not like the numbers have dropped, but they're just better athletes all round. And I think that it's a positive thing. And I mean, will we ever go back to that super heavy short distances and stuff like that? Maybe, but in my opinion and from where I stand, hopefully not. I think Paddy's a great example. He's come from an athletic background. He's an amazing athlete. He's then obviously gone away, kept that athleticism, done some strength training. And I mean, look at what he's producing at the moment. Hooper's the same. I mean, Tom, he's the only exception in terms of the size now. He's the real monster that's still around. But Tom is an amazing athlete as well. He's very fast. He's, you know, he moves well. He's not like a big guy that's sort of lumbering and cumbersome. He's meant to be big.
No, that's great. And yeah, you mentioned the heavy stuff. I was watching some stuff yesterday. Obviously, you'll be aware, I'm sure, of the Brian Shaw event that's coming up, and he released I think there's 8 events and there's 7 events there that are kind of like max weights or max,
Yeah.
you know. And then I saw a few things yesterday, like people saying, God, people are going to get injured here. You know, you're not used to 7 out of 8 events kind of maxing out on deadlift or log press or yoke or, you know, stones and stuff like that. So like you say, I think there is that, and there is kind of, it's probably more the spectators rather than the athletes themselves, but there are some spectators or fans who really just want to see these max weights all the time. But you know, we were taught, who was it we had on the other, when we had Andrew Burton on a few weeks back, and he was out at the Magnus Classic in November, and then he went to the OSG, and he really struggled because he said his nervous system was just shocked. I think it was 10 days difference, 10 days separating. And then he's just won the Pro-Am at the Arnold. So he'll be in the big show at the Arnold's next year. But he was saying about how your nervous system takes such a hit doing this. Like the Magnus is a 3-day show, 3 events per day in real extreme conditions. And it took him months really to fully get over that. So if you're maxing out on 7 out of 8 events, I mean, that's tough, isn't it? I mean, nothing I've ever done, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it will be really tough. I mean, Brian sort of always believed, you know, he's been one of the sort of guys that sort of push for world's strongest man to try and make things heavier. He feels that strongman should be about finding who's the strongest is, not who's the strongest with athleticism thrown in. And I mean, obviously, everyone's got their different view on how strongman should be. You see the fans are like, you got a load of them saying, Brian, you know, like at the moment, Brian Show's crazy, it's too heavy, he's going to injure all the guys. And there's those same people are saying, well, strongest man's too light. And then you've got the other guys, you know, there's both sides of the spectrum. But I think Brian sort of set his stall out and said, this is how I think it should be. I mean, I personally would have loved Brian's show to go and do it, just purely from a nervousness, excitement. You know, I don't know what I can do. I don't know how this is going to go. I sort of got a little bit bored with competition sometimes when you're like, right, I'm going to go in there and try and do this as fast as I can. Is it going to take me 10 seconds or 11 seconds? I mean, that to me it's not exciting almost. Whereas going in there and going, I don't even know if I can finish this. That excites me anyway. I just think that, you know, I think it's okay to have both options. And I mean, some of the athletes, they could choose to do one and not the other, or vice versa. And I don't really see that there's an issue with that. I actually watched a video with Pa talking about it, and he was like, you know, this is the athletes' jobs and everything. You've got to think about their safety. It's like, they don't have to go. I mean, I know he got frustrated with people saying that, but there's plenty of other competitions around. There's loads of Giants Lives, Rogue, Arnold's, World's Strongest Man. You know, if you felt like that show was dangerous, just don't go and do it. And if you feel like World's Strongest Man doesn't suit your strengths and you don't particularly like being there, don't do that. I mean, there's plenty of options. I mean, with sport, it's like, for me, it's about the challenge and the excitement of doing it and stuff like that. So you know, it's not your God-given right to have the events as you want them, so you feel it's right. You just go and do it, and if it works out well, great. If it doesn't, you know, it's fine. Sport's not always about winning. Sometimes it's about your own goal and your own journey.
Excellent. I was going to ask maybe, Terry, so when you decided to kind of give up professional, you know, competitive strongman, what was the catalyst or the reason behind that? And then what did you decide to kind of go into next?
Right. So, I mean, the plan was 2021 World's Strongest Man. That was going to be my last World's Strongest Man anyway. I mean, I actually declined my invite in 2019. I decided I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to just take some time off. Went and did a bodybuilding show in the time that World's Strongest Man was on. I was on prep for a bodybuilding show just because I wanted to challenge myself. And obviously by that point, by the time I got to sort of 2019, I knew that I wasn't going to win World's Strongest Man. My best days had passed me. So it was kind of, if I get to go to World's Strongest Man and I feel good, great. It's, you know, I'll do the best I can do. You know, I can be in the mix, but I know that, you know, my chance of winning are gone. So I just sort of was more interested in doing something different that year to challenge myself. So I did 2019, went and did a bodybuilding show. I then came back, did a couple of shows the back end of the year. I think a couple of months after I did my bodybuilding show, I did Wuss out in Dubai. And then I think 4 months after the bodybuilding show, I flew out to Masters World's Strongest Man and won it because I was in my 40s by then as well. So I won Masters World's Strongest Man. And then I was still obviously in decent shape and everything. And I was like, right, well, I can still be competitive. I might not be the best, but I can still be competitive. If I want to do the show, I'll do it. You know, I just took every show as it came. And then, so 2021 was the point where I was like, okay, this is it. I just want to get there, trained really hard. I want to compete, make the final. 10 finals sound so much better than 9. Walk away from it and be happy. You know, 15 appearances, 10 finals would have sounded so much better than 9, you know. So that was the goal. And actually in the yard before we started the competition, I tore my bicep. So I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry, swearing.
That's all right. Don't worry.
I was like, this isn't good. You know, I had like a big hole in my arm and I was like, I don't know what to do. So I sort of kept quiet about it for a little while and I sort of walked off. And I remember talking to Bish because he was in my group and we trained together right up to World's Strongest Man, which was odd. We trained together in the build up and we were in the same group and we're good friends. But anyway, I just said to him, I said, I think I've just torn my bicep. And he was like, you're joking. And I was like, no. And I picked the frame up and I was like, it feels all right. It's like, it feels a bit weird, but I can still do it. And then I had a look and I was like this massive hole in the top of my arm. And I was like, this isn't good. And then over the next sort of period of an hour or so, it was just getting worse and worse. And I'm sort of sitting there like testing all the events, doing familiarization. I'm like avoiding doing anything more and more. So then I thought, I'm going to have to say something because I need to get some treatment on it or see what's going on. Spoke to the physio, spoke to them. They had a big conversation with me because the way it works at World's Strongest Man, if you start the events, they can't put a reserve in. But if you don't start, they can put the reserve in. So they had a big chat with me about not competing. And I got really frustrated with them. I don't know if I can swear or not, so I'll try and be, you know.
No, it's fine if you want to. Yes, yeah,
I'll try and paraphrase a little bit. But they said, look, you know, if you pull out now, we can put a reserve in. If you don't, and then you pull out after one event, you could ruin our TV show. So my response back to that was, I've given you like 18 years of my life. I've worked my arse off for this event. I've trained my arse off for the last 12 weeks. You fucking owe me this last moment that I can sort of go and do it. This was going to be my last one. You're not taking it away from me. And then they eventually agreed to let me do it. The doctor was worried I was going to tear something else. I was like, I don't fucking care. Just let me compete. So strapped it up, got on with it. Did the first event, still come second, which I was really happy with. I was like, I've never been so happy to come second on an event. I was like, yes. but it was a problem. I couldn't, by then, I couldn't grip anything with my left hand at all. Then after that, I was like, you know, I'm in big trouble here. So I sort of spoke to him, and again, the doctor's like, we really don't advise you do the next event. And I was like, can I just do the next event? It's deadlift next. And they were kind of like, ugh, but you might tear your lat, you might, you know, tear something in your shoulder. I was like, it's fine. I'm done now anyway. This is my last time. Just let me have this moment. Let me go out on my shield on my terms. I don't want you to tell me not to compete. I want to decide when the time's up. So I went out there, did the deadlift, was actually trying to help Bish in terms of like points to make sure I helped him get through to the final, which he ended up doing anyway.
I remember watching that, the
Yeah.
deadlift actually, yeah, because you probably use like figure-8 straps or something, do you? As
Yeah.
well for that. So yeah, the biceps gone, but you're literally just tied onto the bar.
That's it.
So
Yeah, I had it all like taped up. I had literally like bundles of tape around it, just holding it in place. I had an elbow sleeve pulled up over my bicep. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was quite painful, but we got it done. And then I sort of walked off. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I felt like I was going to die afterwards just because of like the heat and stuff. But I sort of walked off and I was like, thank you for that. I said, now I'm done. And it was sort of like I said, I mean, they were obviously trying to take it away from me, and I wanted to go out on my shield. So yeah, that was sort of kind of put everything to bed, because I was meant to do the Royal Albert Hall afterwards. Really wanted to do that so my son could come and watch me compete there in London, and then that was off the table. So I was kind of like, that's that. It's disappointing, but it is what it is. You know, I gave it a good run. I gave it the best I could, and my body's now saying enough's enough. So that was kind of the end of it. And then I sort of bummed around for a few months, didn't even train, did nothing, just drunk a lot, ate a lot. Just, yeah, was basically just like being a lazy bum pretty much. And then thought I kind of need to do something. Well, I enjoyed the challenge of the bodybuilding, so maybe we'll do that. Rung someone up and was like, oh, would you coach me? And he was like, I'm full up at the moment. Why don't you speak to Si, who's a good friend of Bish's? And I was like, do you know what? I didn't even think about him being a bodybuilding coach. So I rang him up. I was like, Si, will you coach me for a bodybuilding show? And he was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, definitely. Let's do it. And then we started the wheels in motion. And a few months later, I got on stage again, qualified for the British Championships in the federation I was in. A few months after that, I did the Arnold. And I think I was the first person to get on stage as a pro strongman at an Arnold's, well, actually multiple Arnold's, and then get on stage as a bodybuilder as well. So that was quite a nice accolade. Obviously,
you did the one that you did the Arnold's at Birmingham, didn't you?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, because I was there that year. I think was that about 3 years ago now? Would it be?
Yeah, 22.
22.
Yeah, it might have been 22.
22, 23.
Yeah, 22, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and then obviously since then it's kind of just been flitting backwards and forwards, training how I feel like training. I mean, for me now, the trying to get my body functioning, making sure I can continue to train for the rest of my life. That's the most important thing. For me, training is a huge part of my life, and I need that sort of, I need to be in the gym. I need to be working hard. If that went away, I think I would struggle mentally very badly. So at the moment, I'm dealing with a serious knee problem. I tore my lat a few months ago. But now I'm just sort of trying to focus on doing everything I can to keep me training. So I'm trying to be as health conscious as possible, you know, trying to fix a lot of issues. I'm working with someone who's helping me with a lot of different issues that I've got with my body, try and get everything functioning as it should. And like I said, the main focus is now that I can be 65 years old and still training. That's more important than how much I can deadlift.
That's really interesting you just said that, because that is one of our catchphrases that Pete wants to say is, what does it look like in 20 years? You know, it's like, yeah, you can train now, and we've touched on it, or you've touched on it already, the difference between performance and health, and athletic performance isn't always healthy. You know, it's doing what you need to do to perform at that level. But now, like you say, you're 45 now, and you're now looking to, well, 65. I want to still be training in the gym and want to be healthy and strong and fit. Because I think you had kind of set yourself a goal to get your deadlift sort of like back to a
Yeah.
level, and that's when you tore your lat, wasn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, well, that kind of was like a point being proved to me. I think I went from having not deadlifted for a couple of years. I went in the gym and I deadlifted like 330, I think, and it was quite tough. Like, I'm not going to lie, it was like very near the limit. I maybe could have done 340 at a push, maybe. And within, I think, 6 weeks, I was back up repping 370. So it was like, I mean, I was probably strong enough to do 400 at the time. So within, about 6, 7 weeks, I was sort of from 330 up to strong enough to do 400 again. But that in itself was a problem because it came so quickly that my body almost wasn't prepared for it. So I stupidly, on the day that I tore my lat, I did my set 370, all good, and I'm like, yep, I got through that. I'd been in Norway the weekend prior, me and my missus, because she's from Norway, so we'd been back to visit her family and stuff. I'd flown, I was dehydrated, I wasn't feeling too good. I woke up in the morning, I almost wrote the session off, and then was like, now I'm going to go and do it anyway. So I got my sets in at 370, which is what I was planning to do. And stupidly, I decided after I did all my work at 370 to try and do 380. And about halfway up the lift, it just massive pop, lat had gone, and that was that. So it was very frustrating. I'm now left with a nice big hole in my lat, which if I ever get down to being bodybuilder stage lean again, will look a bit of a mess, but it is what it is.
Because it makes me laugh because I know you're very active. We'll obviously tell everyone how to follow you and whatnot at the end, but you're very active on social media and YouTube and things. And it made me laugh the other day. You posted something. I think it may have been your first deadlifting back or deadlifting, and someone had put something like, "Oh, like, well, you're not a very strong deadlifter, or you shouldn't be deadlifting that much." And then you said you are having a laugh, aren't you? I used to like held the like world record at one stage. It's like, and you get these people online who comment absolute rubbish. Don't you?
Well, it's funny because I was just thinking what Terry was saying there about, like, you've got to the point now and you're like, right, I'm going to look after my health and make sure I live a long and I can still move and all that. For us mere mortals, right? That's easy to do. If you've never moved, you've never done anything. If you get to your age of 45 and you've not done anything, you can start now. And it's going to be easier to become fitter and healthier because you haven't got all the injury. Like, okay, you might have a sore back, you might have a sore shoulder and all that, but you're not injured. You're just a bit weak and not moving and a bit immobile and stuff like that. So I find it really interesting that, and a lot of people who have spoken are in a similar boat to you. It's like you give up your life for the sport, and it's never like no sport is actually properly healthy, is it? Because you've got to give up so much. But then you get to a certain point and everybody gets, it's usually a similar age. Everyone gets 35, 40 and starts to go, right, I need to look after myself now before I get too old early.
Well, you're trying to like almost limit the damage, but also try and reverse some of the things. I mean, I know for me, a lot of the movements I'm doing is just to try and get mobility back in my body because everything's so stiff and tight. But I mean, it's quite interesting you saying that because obviously at the point I'm at now, I'm 45 and I'm trying to fix things and prolong my life. And you said about starting at that age, like that is like the perfect time to start lifting weights. So many people are like, oh, I'm 45, I can't start now. Now is the time to do it. This is when being strong, lifting weights, doing big compound movements, not to a crazy degree, but now's the time to start doing it because you start to get weaker bones, everything starts to slow down a bit. You're doing compound movements. It's great as you get older in life. I mean, having that sort of, your bone strength does decrease as you get older. And it's proven that if you continue to lift weights or start to lift weights at that point, it prolongs that process of weakening your bones and stuff like that. And obviously it's just good for your health. I mean, I think that there's never a bad thing about being strong, apart from if you've pushed yourself to the extreme that I have, where your joints are all knackered and everything else. But just trying to get stronger on a day-to-day basis is never going to be a negative thing.
Absolutely, because I mean, for you guys, it's different because you're performing and stuff. But it's people say that and they go, yeah, but what, like, what about if you get too strong? It's like, don't worry, that's not going to be, I mean, that's not going to be a problem for me. It's not going to be a problem for James, right? It's just not going to be a problem for us. We're
No.
not like, we could just continue to try getting stronger as we age, which is like, that if you're doing that, you're winning really, aren't you? But the other thing you mentioned was like, you go lifting because you have to for your mental health as well.
Yeah.
And again, thinking about people who like, sit on the sofa, don't do much, and they're like, oh, my mental health, I can't because I haven't got the motivation or whatever. And it's like, all of this stuff ties in, doesn't it? It's like you said, it's the perfect time to just get started. People,
Yeah.
if you're 45, you've probably like done all right in your career, had kids, you've done all of the other stuff that's like considered a success. And now you're just sitting broke, and it's like, well, do that. And then by the time you're 65, people will want to know what your secret is.
Oh, exactly. I mean, me and my missus talk about this a lot. I mean, she coaches a lot of people as well. She's very into her fitness, very knowledgeable when it comes to training, diet and stuff. And we chat about it a lot. And it's like amazing how physical health, lifting weights and stuff, your nutrition, your mental health are so linked. You find that most people that have got mental health issues have a shit diet or don't train. Or don't do either. If you train hard and push your body and you eat well, it's amazing how all of a sudden things start getting better. I mean, to be fair, I can be guilty of it at times. I know that if I get up in the morning, get myself out of bed early, get myself out for a walk or get myself over to the gym, go and do a bit of light cardio, I am so much happier, more productive and everything for the rest of the day. If I just get up and sit on the sofa and slob around for 2 hours, it sort of puts me in that mode of being like that all day.
Yeah.
And sometimes
I did that on Tuesday.
yeah, but you said about like sometimes the whole mental health thing. Yes, when you're sitting on the sofa, you don't want to get up and you don't want to do it. But again, like it goes back to that same thing. That's the time when you need to do it. You need to force yourself to get up off the sofa because yes, you don't want to do it, but you will start feeling better if you do, and then that in turn will then become like, oh, I know I feel better when I do this. I'm going to keep doing it. The same as your diet. You start eating a good, healthy diet and eating your vegetables and your salad and getting your micronutrients. You then all of a sudden go, Jesus, I feel better. I haven't got any stomach problems and I feel much happier and I feel lighter and I'm sleeping better. All of a sudden, like it just makes you feel better all the time. So it has no negative effect. It's like I think the trouble with the world these days is everyone chases instant gratification.
Yeah.
They want to be able to go in the gym and lift this big weight, then they don't want to put the work in to get there. Or they want to be able to run this fast and they don't want to put the work in to get there. They want that quick fix of that nice tasting food, but they sacrifice feeling good on a day-to-day basis for the next 10 years for that one nice burger and chips. And I think we're all guilty of it. I think sometimes you've got to sort of sacrifice a little bit to gain a lot.
This is great. And tell, I suppose now that you're like we said, you're not competing in strongman, you are training for health and strength, and you might down the line get back on stage again in bodybuilding and things. But I know you're doing more time now coaching others and coaching people through transformations and things like that. How does that work? Is that mainly done online? Is it that you do your coaching?
Yeah, most of it's online, but I do some in-person stuff if people actually are interested. I mean, for me, the big thing, I actually don't coach a lot of strongmen. I've got a few strongmen and I coach a few people that like doing some strongman training. But most of my clients are between 35 and 50. That's the bulk of them. And they're guys that perhaps used to do sport, want to get in a bit better shape again. They've sort of let themselves go. They've got some experience of strength training. This is most of the guys that I coach. But we're all sort of, they're in the same mold as me. They're older guys that just want to prolong their lifting career, be in half decent shape, feel good, and sort of feel happier. And I think that part of feeling happier is, feeling like you're achieving things in your life or you're making progress. So I'm a big fan of like doing kind of like a power building model when I'm trying to get people in shape, some compound movement, some heavy lifting and some sort of bodybuilding type stuff. So that way you get the positive thing of like those targets when you're looking at your compound movements. We can work up to a heavy squat every once in a while or a heavy bench press. So you get those positive moments like, I just hit a new PB. that's motivating to keep you going, but you also get the effect of the sort of bodybuilding movements of like changing your physique as well. And obviously I do work with them on their diet as well, and just generally sort of guiding them along the way, because I've been through most of the experiences they have. I mean, I actually get far more satisfaction out of coaching guys that are in a rut and need to get out of it and maybe have gained a bit of weight and, you know, they're just not feeling that good on a day-to-day basis. I prefer to coach guys like that than elite level strongmen, just because it just makes me feel good, in all honesty. I'm much happier doing that. I mean, elite athletes, it's sort of, you know, they'll always be successful, no matter who coaches them. You know, their level of success can vary a little bit, but they're going to be successful. You know, you're talking about genetic freaks, people that have got that unbelievable work ethic and everything else. Whereas I prefer to work with those everyday guys that have got a normal job. Maybe they're a single dad, well, I mean, obviously I've got a partner, but I have been a single dad where I've been on my own. And, you know, there's days where I've got my son, or like a week where I've got my son. And, you know, there are plenty of guys in my situation, you know, so you share the time with the other parent, and got to hold down a job and then still try and do everything else. So if I can help guys like that are in that situation because of the experiences I've been through, then that's a big positive for me.
No,
That's the
fantastic.
perfect place to be as well. And there isn't any room to train any of the professional guys anyway, because Loz is training them all, isn't he?
Yeah, well, yeah, Loz or MST, yeah. Pretty much everyone. I think it was Shane at Europe's Strongest Man coached half the guys in the lineup. So
yeah. I'll tell. That's been so good talking to you. It really has, and it's absolutely fantastic hearing, you know, your story. Obviously, a bit about the current kind of obviously strongman and the world's strongest man coming up. Your background, you know, coaching, to get a bit of a feel of your, you know, your philosophy around training and coaching now. And I love the fact that now you're, you know, you're looking to the next 20 years and how you can stay strong and fit and healthy and improve your longevity and things, which is great. I did just want to mention to people actually that Terry is going to be in Chelmsford in Essex at Unique Results on the 1st of June, doing a workshop with us. It'll be kind of like a 3 or 4 hours on the Sunday. And we're going to do that. Terry's actually very kindly, we're going to do that to raise some money for Britain's disabled strongman this year. Gary Clark, who's been on the podcast a few times, and obviously Magnus is involved in that. And who else have we had on? We had Sitting Bull, didn't we? UK on here.
Yeah.
Louise Greer.
Matt Diamond's involved in it as well, isn't he?
Diamond, yeah, we had quite
Louise.
a few of the disabled athletes with us as well. So yeah, so that's going to be the 1st of June. It's a Sunday in Chelmsford, Essex, and you'll get to be able to spend some time and learn from Terry, and he can maybe do a bit of coaching on some of your lifts and things like that as well, and just hear from him and get some advice, which would be amazing. So there'll be more details coming out about that soon. Now, if people do want to kind of follow you, Terry, to just kind of, you know, where are you putting most of your effort at the moment? Is it YouTube? Is it Instagram? Where do you want people to go?
I mean, both really. I mean, the Instagram is obviously a lot of sort of promotional stuff for companies I work with in terms of like modeling and things like that. Don't laugh. I am a male plus size model. But yeah, like, and obviously there's some coaching tips there. The YouTube is the big push at the moment, just trying to get to a point. I'm sort of trying to almost use the world's strongest man as a little bit of a springboard to boost my numbers, in terms of it gets a lot of interaction when world's strongest man is on. And if I get that in a position where I'm getting plenty of interaction, obviously the educational stuff can follow from that. So it's just a case of trying to get the numbers up a bit, and then I can start putting more content out that sort of, you know, exactly like we sort of just spoke about, to try and help people on their journeys. And obviously that for me is part of giving back. I've been fortunate with my career and everything that I've done to have the life that I've had, and lifting has made my life very, very good. So I would like to obviously be in a position where I can pay it back almost a little bit to, you know, give people, you know, their opportunity to get the benefits of going to the gym, lifting and living a healthier lifestyle.
Excellent. And next week, as we go out, we're out on the 9th of May. Next week, you're going to be over at the world's strongest man in America if you had to pick a winner, I know it's difficult, but if you had or even pick the top three, I don't know who do you think might be doing it this year?
Right. So I will go top three in order. Going out on a limb here, I'm not going to sit on the fence. Mitch Hooper first, Tom Stoltman second, Luke Richardson third.
Wow. That'll be good. That is there. I like that. No sitting on the fence there.
Yeah, no, I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't like it when people sit on the fence and go, oh, I'm not sure. Let's just go for it and commit to it.
No, that's brilliant. Excellent. Thank you so much, Tel. It's been amazing talking to you. And yeah, we'll be seeing you, in a few weeks in Chelmsford in Essex. So, making the trip all the way over from Kent, which will be great. I think you're also, you're getting married soon as well, aren't you? Have you got
straight after World's Strongest Man? So we fly from Sacramento down to Vegas, me and the missus, and we get married in Vegas, and then we're there for a few days. Come home as a fully married couple. She's currently downstairs looking up at me at the moment, so, looking nervous. But it's I mean, it's going to be a sort of obviously a small thing, just us, and then we'll do a celebration at home in a few months' time.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. That's been an absolute pleasure having you on. It's been incredible. It's been great, isn't it?
I just want to say one thing. I'm going to clip. I'm tempted to clip this out and stick it on Instagram and tag you in it and everything to see how much hate you get for it, because you said you were telling everyone to eat your salad. One of the world's strongest man competitors telling everyone to eat their salad. I love that.
You got to, honestly. I mean, this is the thing. It's like, and the thing is, it's not like it's that hard to eat, is it? You just shove it in there, it's done. It's like,
your purists out there who were talking about would be like, what? Yeah. the weights are getting lighter, and he's telling people to eat salad as well. It's a disgrace.
No, you just got to eat meat.
Excellent. Thank you thank you everyone for watching, listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. If you don't yet subscribe on YouTube, do that for us as well. We will be back next week for episode 246. Until then, thank you very much, Tel.
No problem at all. Really enjoyed it, and obviously can't wait for the 1st of June.
Excellent. Brilliant. Thank you, Pete.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and we'll both see you as well. We'll both see you at the Royal Albert Hall as well in July. And are you going to be involved? At the are you going to be refereeing at all at the UK's Strongest, the Ultimates one? In Milton Keynes, not Milton Keynes, Nottingham or whatever?
I'm not sure yet. I haven't had any contact, so we shall see. It might be that I'm there in another capacity with one of the companies that I work with, but obviously I can't say anything on that because they're talking contacts and contracts and stuff. So but I might be there in some capacity. Yeah,
because I know the last couple of years I've been with my daughter, who she's only 8, but she loves it, and we went to Nottingham, and then last year was Cardiff, and then it's back to Nottingham. I think I've seen you I think you've been at both of the ones I've been to so far. And yeah, brilliant, cool. Okay, right, we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.